Some lessons come at a steep price, and mine came with the loss of someone and the realization that real compatibility isn't about fitting someone else's idea of excitement. It's about honoring how each person experiences joy in their own way. Hey, I'm Sam, and I want to share what's been happening with Molly and me. You know how people say relationships are complicated? Well, mine's starting to feel that way, but not for the reasons you'd expect. I'm just an ordinary guy with a 9-to-5 job in IT. During the week, I'm fixing code and troubleshooting networks. Pretty standard stuff. But on weekends, that's when I come alive. You should see my gaming setup. It's not just about playing games, it's about diving headfirst into these incredible worlds. Just last month, I wrapped up a massive D&D campaign that I'd spent 3 months planning. Watching my friends' faces light up when they finally defeated the dragon? Totally worth it. And then there's my miniature painting hobby. I've got an entire corner of my apartment dedicated to it. Perfect lighting, neatly arranged paints, the works. I just finished painting an intricate Warhammer army. Each figure took hours, but there's nothing like bringing those tiny warriors to life. Really, Sam? Another Saturday painting toy soldiers? That's what Molly said last weekend. Her eye roll making it clear how little she cared. I get it. Not everyone's into this stuff. But the way she said it, like I was less of a man because I'd rather paint miniatures than go rock climbing, really stung. Greg went bungee jumping last weekend. She told me again, probably for the 100th time. Greg, her friend Sandy's boyfriend, apparently epitomizes what a real man should be. The guy's always skydiving, climbing mountains, or whitewater rafting, basically anything you'd see in an energy drink commercial. That's great for Greg, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral while carefully adding highlights to a Space Marine's armor. I'm sure he had fun. Molly wasn't done, though. You could try it sometime, she suggested, her tone dripping with that interview-like quality that makes me feel like I'm applying for a job I don't even want. Here's the thing, I'm not in a shell. I'm exactly where and who I want to be. I work hard, manage my money responsibly, and have hobbies that challenge my creativity and strategic thinking. And honestly, I'm pretty damn good at them, but because my interests don't involve risking life and limb, they seem to be seen as somehow less. It's frustrating. Just last night, Molly was scrolling through Instagram, showing me pictures of Greg's latest mountain climbing adventure. Now that's what I call exciting, she said. Don't you want to try something more adventurous? I put down my paintbrush and looked at her. Really looked at her. Molly, I'm not Greg. I'm never going to be Greg. And honestly, I don't want to be. She laughed it off, saying I was being dramatic, but I'm starting to wonder if we're just too different. I'm proud of who I am. My hobbies might not be adrenaline-fueled, but they bring me joy, challenge me, and let me create something meaningful. If that's not manly enough for her, maybe that's a conversation we need to have. It's not that I'm angry, I'm just tired of feeling like I need to apologize for being myself, tired of the comparisons, tired of having my passions dismissed as childish when they're anything but. I've built a life I genuinely enjoy, and I'm starting to think I deserve someone who values that too. Hi, it's Molly. Let me give you my side of the story about Sam. He's sweet, really. He remembers anniversaries, shows up when he says he will, and has a stable job. All the things you'd want in a partner. But sometimes, I can't help feeling like he's settling for a safe, predictable life when there's so much more out there to experience. Last weekend, I was at Sandy's for our usual Sunday brunch, and Greg had just come back from this amazing mountain biking trip in Colorado. You should have seen him. Eyes shining, hands waving as he described the trails. Nearly vertical drops, rocks everywhere, one wrong move, and... He whistled, mimicking a fall. Sandy playfully smacked his arm, but you could tell she was proud. Meanwhile, I was sitting there thinking about Sam probably hunched over his desk at home, painting those tiny plastic figures he's obsessed with. At least you know where Greg is on weekends, I joked to Sandy, trying to laugh it off. Sam's idea of adventure is trying a new paint color on his miniatures. Everyone laughed, but Sandy gave me that look, the kind where someone's silently telling you to think about what you're saying. The thing is, I'm not trying to be mean. I just want Sam to live a little. The other day, I suggested we try rock climbing at a new indoor facility downtown. Nothing extreme, just beginner stuff. You know what he said? I need to finish painting my army for this tournament next month. An army of plastic toys. How am I supposed to respond to that? I'm not asking him to turn into an extreme sports junkie overnight, but would it hurt him to try something that gets his heart racing? Something that doesn't involve sitting in front of a screen or hovering over a painting table? Greg didn't start out scaling mountains and braving extreme expeditions. He began with smaller hikes, moved on to rock climbing, and now he's conquering breathtaking terrains across the country. Sam could be like that too, I think, if he just pushed himself a little. But the frustrating part is that he doesn't even seem interested in trying. Last week I showed him a stunning photo Greg posted from the summit of Mount Rainier. "This could be us," I said, hoping to spark some inspiration. "Imagine the thrill of reaching the top together." Sam barely looked at the picture, giving me a tired glance before saying, "Molly, not everyone needs to climb mountains to feel accomplished." Then, without missing a beat, he turned back to his gaming console, like the conversation hadn't even happened. I brought it up again during girls' night last Thursday. Katie, always one to play devil's advocate, asked me why it bothered me so much. "He's responsible, loyal, and has his own interests," she said. "Isn't that enough?" But is it? When I think about my future, I envision adventures, challenges, and stories worth sharing. I see someone like Greg, who treats life as a grand adventure, always pushing boundaries and testing his limits. Instead, I have someone whose biggest excitement comes from mastering a new painting technique or leveling up in a fantasy game. Yesterday, I couldn't hold it in any longer. We were having dinner, and Sam was enthusiastically explaining a complex gaming narrative he crafted for his friends. I interrupted, unable to stop myself. "Sam," I said, "don't you ever want to create real stories, like Greg's mountain climbing videos? Those are real adventures, real achievements." The silence that followed felt heavy. Finally, he replied, "My achievements are real, Molly. They're just not the kind you value." And that's the problem. I want him to value bigger things. Life is too short to spend pretending. When I see Greg's Instagram stories filled with cliffs and mountain peaks, I can't help but think about all the incredible experiences Sam is missing out on, and all the ones I'm missing too, because he's content staying in his comfort zone. Sandy tells me I'm being too hard on him, that not everyone needs adrenaline to lead a fulfilling life. Maybe she's right. But I can't shake the feeling that Sam is capable of so much more if he'd just put down the paintbrush and take a risk for once. I know what you're thinking. If I'm so unhappy, why don't I just leave? But it's not that simple. Sam's a good guy, maybe the best I've ever dated. I just wish he could be a little more, well, like Greg. Is that really too much to ask? Social media has a way of turning private feelings into public drama, and I never thought it would become the final stage of my relationship with Molly. But here we were. Like most modern conflicts, it started with an Instagram post. Greg, always Greg, had just summited some impossible peak in Colorado. The photo was picture perfect. Sweat-slicked face, a jaw-dropping mountain backdrop, and that unmistakable air of triumph Molly found so irresistible. And, of course, she tagged me. "At Sam, when are you going to do something this exciting?" she captioned, complete with a flexing arm emoji and a snow-capped mountain. Publicly. Naturally, the comments flooded in. Sandy, ever supportive, wrote, "Motivate him." Katie, predictably sharp, said, "Ouch, burn." And then there were the likes, the little red hearts that somehow cut deeper than words. I stared at the screen, years of bottled-up frustration bubbling to the surface in one defining moment. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This time, I wasn't letting it slide. "At Molly," I typed, keeping my response deliberate and steady. "Greg is your gold standard. Maybe you should date him. I'm not here to be your project or your version of what a real man should be." The comments exploded almost instantly. "Wow, defensive much?" some said. "Greg seems way cooler," others chimed in. But there were also surprises. Respect for standing up for yourself. She's been publicly shaming you for months, so not cool. Molly's response came in a flood of DMs, comments, and excuses. It was just a joke, you're overreacting. The same deflection I'd heard for months. If I tagged you publicly, asking why you don't cook more or look more feminine like someone else's girlfriend, would you find that funny? I replied, this time making sure my words were visible to everyone. The internet is ruthless. Some people rallied behind me, while others called me dramatic. For the first time, though, I didn't care. My hobbies might not involve risking my life for an adrenaline rush, I posted, but they take skill, creativity, and patience. I build entire worlds, in games, in writing, in my art. That takes more imagination and courage than jumping off a cliff. The digital audience seemed to collectively hold its breath. I closed with one final comment. If you want someone more manly, you're free to find them. I'm done trying to change myself to meet your expectations. Then came the blocking. Anyone who made particularly cruel remarks about my interests or masculinity, blocked. Sandy, who had subtly encouraged Molly's behavior, blocked. And Molly herself, blocked on every platform. Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, her phone number. The messages poured in. Friends, family, acquaintances who'd witnessed the fallout. Some were supportive, others critical, and a few were just nosy. For the first time in months, though, I felt free from constant comparisons, free from someone else's narrow definition of masculinity, free to be myself. On my desk, my unfinished miniature waited beside my half-written fantasy novel. My gaming setup hummed softly in the corner. These weren't just hobbies. They were pieces of who I am. Creative, intricate, meaningful. No one, not Molly, not Greg, not an entire Instagram audience, could make me feel small about them anymore. Sometimes, standing up for yourself means walking away, even if that walk is as simple as a digital block. It's a declaration of self-worth, a line in the sand. They say to be careful what you wish for. I never expected those words to hit so close to home. After Sam broke up with me and blocked me, something inside shifted. His words kept replaying in my mind. Not just the confrontation, but what they truly meant. Maybe Sam was right. Perhaps I had been trying to mold him into an imaginary version of a man who didn't actually exist. Enter Jake. The rock climber, the ideal I had romanticized while I was with Sam. He was tall, rugged, and his weathered hands seemed to tell stories of real adventures. He was also Sam's cousin, and hearing about my breakup, decided it was the perfect time to slide into my DMs. Our first date was nothing like the structured, easy dinners I'd had with Sam. Jake suggested we meet at an indoor climbing gym. Let's see if you're up for a challenge, he said, with that cocky grin I once found irresistible. Determined to prove I could be the adventurous woman I'd always imagined, I showed up in my best athletic gear. Reality check, climbing is unbelievably hard. By the end of the first hour, my arms felt like limp spaghetti. My fingers were raw, and Jake was more focused on showing off his skills than helping me learn. This wasn't the romantic adventure I had pictured. Still, I was stubborn. I had committed to this lifestyle and I was going to make it work. My weekends turned into a blur of extreme sports and exhausting expeditions. One weekend it was rock climbing, the next, mountain biking. Jake was always chasing the next big thrill, and I constantly pushed myself to keep up. The rock climbing community was unlike anything I had known. These weren't the steady, predictable people I was used to. They lived for the moment, fueled by a recklessness that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Jake talked about his upcoming climbs the way most people discuss casual weekend plans, tossing out mentions of impossible routes and stomach-churning risks. Then came the expedition that changed everything. Jake had been planning a climb in the Pacific Northwest for weeks. It was a notoriously difficult route that required skill, preparation, and no small amount of luck. I was nervous but kept it to myself. This was my chance to prove I could be as adventurous as him. The morning of the climb was crisp and cold, the kind of autumn day that looks stunning in photos but feels treacherous in person. Jake was buzzing with excitement, his movements precise as he checked his gear, his confidence unshakable. But nature is indifferent to confidence. A sudden rock slide, a moment of error, and Jake lost his footing on a particularly difficult section. I stood frozen, powerless, as he fell. The rescue team did all they could, but some falls are too severe. In an instant, the fantasy I had built around this adventurous lifestyle came crashing down with him. The weeks that followed were a haze of grief, shock, and painful reflection. Sam's words echoed in my mind, about real achievements, about value beyond adrenaline and risk. I thought about the stability he embodied, the depth of his passions that I had dismissed so easily. Those hours he spent painting miniatures? They weren't just toys. They were expressions of creativity, patience, and genuine dedication. I drafted a message to Sam, unsure if I even deserved his forgiveness, but hoping for his understanding. The text sat in my drafts for days. How do you apologize for trying to change someone who was already complete as they were? The climber lifestyle I had idealized had shown me its harsh truths. Adventure isn't about constantly courting danger. It's about finding fulfillment in what you do and who you are. That was something Sam had known all along. I realized that the worlds Sam created, whether through painting, writing, or gaming, were as significant as any mountain climb. Perhaps they were even more meaningful because they were crafted with intention, care, and a depth I had been too blind to appreciate. Some lessons come with a heavy price. Mine came with the loss of a life, and the understanding that true compatibility isn't about matching someone else's idea of excitement. It's about respecting the unique way each person experiences joy and the world.